So this is to welcome Ishani Guha, who will be giving us 3 lectures on distributive numerals. Ishani is a recent PhD from MIT. She is currently postdoc at IIT Delhi. Over to you, Ishani.
Thanks for letting me talk about distributive numerals, which is something that I've been living with since 2016. So this topic, I mean, first of all, this topic is about a very focused morphological phenomenon, right? So when I say distributive numerals, this is not WH movement or ellipsis or quantifier scope, right? This is a morphological phenomenon. This is not a name of a theory. This is a linguistic entity, right? And naturally, whenever you select a linguistic entity as your topic, it cross-cuts or it cuts across very many theoretical issues, right? So this is not one issue. This is the morphological realization of numerous questions, okay, and puzzles. And there are many ways to actually, because of the overlapping of various theoretical issues, most of which I will not cover during this course. So what I have thought is to, I'll give you sort of a primer to this topic, because as far as I understand, at least what I remember from my days of being an MA or a PhD student or MA MPhil and beginning PhD student, I didn't even know about these things. It didn't even occur in my studies anywhere. Okay. So I am assuming that you don't know what these things are. Okay. So, and assuming that, I will begin by giving you what exactly is the this entity that we are looking at, the natural language expressions that we are looking at. I give you a bit of typology, right? And I'll tell you the basics about its basic properties in my first class, okay? And so I want to build on from there to something much into the details, a little bit into the details of the numerals. And then finally, I'll end these 3 lectures by giving an overview of this topic from theoretical perspective. So that will come in the last one. Okay. So the first class is about situating. What is it? Okay. And one more thing, for me, the aim of these 3 classes is to, take you forward, not let you be like I was before I studied this. So basically, so that you are at a position to study distributive numerals, which occur in almost the 5th sentence that we utter, but we don't know about them. So that you can take up the study of these numerals on your own. That is my aim of these 3 lectures. Okay, so you are grounded. You have the ground to take up from where I stop. Okay, enough said. Now concentrate on the handout and just, as Aisha said, ask for any clarifications or questions that you may have. Okay, so let's look at, I hope everybody can see the sentences that I have on the handout. So look at the first sentence. Everyone read one book. Okay. Now, these sentences or sentences like these usually have two interpretations. Okay. And so rather than telling you about the interpretation, let me tell you in what sort of situation this sentence can be true. Okay. So in one of the situations in which sentence one, everyone read one book, can be true, is where everybody read a different book. So here I have given some names. So Robi read Crime and Punishment, Noah read Goda, and Pintu read The Hobbit, and so on. Aisha read her own book. Okay. The other situation in which this sentence one can be true is that each and everybody read the very same book, right? So everybody, Robi, Noah, Pintu, and Aisha, everybody read War and Peace. Okay. So these are the two situations which in which minimally sentence one can be true. Okay. However, many languages of the world, in fact, majority of the languages of the world, have a special set of morphologically augmented numerals which only allow the first situation to be the meaning of a sentence like one and rule out the second situation. Okay, so take a look at sentence 2 from Bangla. প্রত্যেকে একটা করে বই পড়েছে. I will primarily use Bangla examples because my work is on Bangla, but I have examples from some other languages too. So প্রত্যেকে একটা করে বই পড়েছে. This sentence is true only in the situation described in the first situation. That is, everybody possibly read a different book, right? So Robi read Crime and Punishment, Noah read Gora, and so on, right? And it is not felicitous to use 2A in a situation where everybody read the same book. So suppose I asked you to read Aisha's book and you read it, I cannot describe that situation by saying 2A. প্রত্যেকে একটা করে বই পড়েছে. No, because I know that all of you read the same book. Okay. So these numeral expressions, this morphologically augmented numerals, একটা করে বই, with a very specific meaning contribution, are called the distributive numerals. Okay. They go by various other names too, and they are also known as dependent numerals. That is a theory loaded term, and there's also terms like distance distributive elements and so on, and there are they are known as anti-quantifiers, and there are many names. I'll use the term distributive numerals because this is the term that most commonly occurs in the typological literature. Okay, and so it's a little bit sort of theory neutral that way. Okay. Okay, now let's look at distributive numerals in Bangla. So first, let's look at what do the cardinality phrases, cardinality expressions in Bangla look like, the regular ones, okay? So plain ones, they have, so look at 3. So they have tinte beral, so they have the number tin, they have the classifier te, and they have the noun beral, right? 4, koekjon chhatri, koek, this is indefinite, maybe a complex indefinite determiner, then followed by the classifier jon, and then noun chhatri. Similarly, onekgulo gari, onek again a determiner, indefinite cardinality determiner, and followed by plural classifier and noun. Okay. Now what happens to the distributive numerals is that you add either a suffix kore, okay, after the classifier, okay, and that is between the classifier and the noun, right? That's one way. So let's come to 7A. So 6A is the plain numeral, একটা বই, one book. 7A, you add kore, একটা kore boi. Or you could reduplicate that numeral classifier complex, so একটা boi. Or you could do both. You could reduplicate and then add the suffix. Okay, so একটা kore boi. Okay. Similarly, this goes on for all numerals. This is a very productive process, right? So I can say, let's say, 127টা করে বই, 127টা করে logins. Okay, so 127 classifier করে. So it's a productive process. Now, so these numeral forms, did somebody say something? No. So these numeral forms in 7A, B, C, so একটা করে, একটা করে, these are the basic forms for distributive numerals. Now let's come to the distinction of adnominal versus adverbial. Distributive numerals can be syntactically and semantically distinguished between two categories. They could be adnominal or adverbial. Okay. So this distinction first was noticed by David Gill in his thesis. And so the abnominal numeral forms are just what you have seen. So let's say in 2A, okay? So where you have একটা করে, this distributive numeral form preceding the bare noun in Bangla, okay? So why I'm going through these details step by step is because there's no guarantee that this will be just like this in every language, right? So it may be the case that in your language, the noun forms precede the determiner, okay? So you'll have to then figure out which one is the adnominal variety and which one is the adverbial variety. Okay, so whether the determiner form precedes the noun or whether it follows the noun is not a diagnostic for the distinction between adnominals and adverbials. Okay, what is the distinction? The distinction is that for the adnominal variety, it will be an indefinite noun phrase, right? So the determiner, the total noun phrase will be just like a numeral indefinite. So একটা বই, one book, and একটা বই or একটা করে বই will be similar kinds of numeral indefinites. Okay, whereas the adverbial one, so I have one example in 8, you will see that the numeral form is not followed by any bare numeral, but in fact, it follows the definite plural, right? So in 8, we have মেয়েরা দুজন দুজন করে জলে ঝাঁপ দিল. The girls jumped into the water 2 by 2. The 2 by 2 is the adverbial, okay? Or in twos. Okay? However, as you can see, the form here, দুজন দুজন করে, is not different from the most complex form in 7C, একটা করে, right? So in for 2, it will be দুটো করে. So the point is that the forms in 7A that we have, okay, take the most complex form in 7C, which has both reduplication and suffixation. That same form can be used as the template for the adverbial numeral in Bangla. Okay, and the adverbial numeral is associated. Associated doesn't mean they form a phrase or something like that. Associated means they are linked by meaning with a definite plural. Okay, the girl in case of 8. Okay, now typologically, it has been noticed that the most complex form of the numeral classifier complex, that is this form, দুজন দুজন করে, or 7C, একটা করে, for Bangla, can be used as adverbial variety, and this pattern shows up across languages. In fact, in most of the languages, that is the case. Okay, so Gil gives us a very nice table for this variation, cross-linguistic variation. So I've quoted from him. These are the examples from just 4 languages. So look at figure 1. So Latin, the plain numeral tres, okay, adnominal numeral, the distributive adnominal distributive numeral is terni, adverbial numeral is terni. Okay, not more complex but equally complex. Okay, Georgian Sami adnominal version is Sam-Sami, and on that same stem sam is formed the adverbial numeral samap. Okay, there's this beautiful example from Mundari in Gil's thesis. So upunia, and then you see a partial reduplication upunia, and then te added to that nominal variety gives the adverbial numeral, right? Upunia te. Turkish.
The Georgian example, we have complete reduplication, and that E is some kind of adnominal
marker. Yes, it's some sort of case marker. Yeah, so I think that is accusative, and the at is some adverbial marking. Okay. Turkish. Here it is why I've given Turkish because it's not categorically different from Mundari, but is for in languages like Mundari, the nominal variety has reduplication and adverbial variety has reduplication, then suffixation. But Turkish is the other way around. It first has this suffix er, right? So ucher, and then it reduplicates the whole thing. So ucher. So that can also be a possibility. It's not that the suffix has to come after reduplication. Okay.
So the reduplication has different functions, right? In Turkish and in Latin, right? So to get the adnominal, one is forming using a reduplication. In Georgian and Mundari.
Yes.
Right, and to get the adverbial, one is forming the reduplication in but in Latin and Turkish, you need to do reduplication. Well, actually, not reduplication. Latin and Turkish, you don't know.
Latin doesn't have anything.
But then the reduplication function is adverbial. In that, I didn't know that Turkish had reduplication at all. So I'm quite interested.
Yeah, right. Yeah. For example, I know that Persian doesn't have reduplication, or I mean, maybe there are 1 or 2 examples of reduplication in the entirety of the things. That too, maybe in loan words. But Turkish actually has a lot of reduplication. Yeah.
Ishani, I have a question. So
yes.
Yeah. So the Bangla adverbial numeral option that we have, which is with reduplication followed by kore.
Yes.
So the ones which we have as the abnominal numeral, do we not allow any of them as the adverbial?
So so what I'm trying to point out here, so let me go back to the figure 1, the table first. So you see that these are examples where you have the abnominal numeral. So Georgian, Mundari, Turkish, abnominal numeral, 1 step less complex morphologically. Well, you can't say the same for Georgian because Georgian may be a case thing. So Mundari and Turkish, 1 step derivationally less complex from the adverbial variety, right? But for Bangla, this form dujon kore is also usable as an abnominal variety. So it is both a form for a nominal and an adverbial set of adverbial numeral, right? But the less complex ones are not usable. So just suffix kore or just reduplication, these are not usable as adverbial ones. So what you cannot say is mera dujon dujon jole jhap dilo is not great. Neither is mera dujon kore jole jhap dilo, right? So the appropriate form, the perfect form is the dujon dujon kore. Okay, is the adverbial numeral form. So that all I am trying to point out here is that, or not I am trying to point out, but what Gill was trying to capture typologically is that since there is this morphological interrelationship between these two sets of numerals, which have slightly different meanings, though they essentially have those very possibly different kind of meaning contribution, but slightly different, and but they clearly show a morphological interrelationship. And so what the point is here is that the adnominal ones and the adverbial ones are basically part of the exponents of the same process.
Right.
Okay. That is what morphologically we are looking at, because that is not apparent from some of the languages. For example, in English, although you have expressions like, I have not given English examples because they're in this handout, because there is some debate over what are the distributive numerals. So Gill pointed out that 2 by 2 or in twos, these could be distributive numerals, adverbial ones, because the meaning is of adverbial. Their meaning is adverbial. We'll go into that, what it means to be adverbial and what it means to be adnominal later on. But there is, according to Gill, who came up with this sort of, typology and distinctions, and it's good that he did.
Some reason
no adnominal variety in English. Okay, so there are languages in which it is not obvious that these two sets of numerals actually are exponents of the same process, because there are languages like English where you do not see any obvious morphological connect between these two sets. Okay, so so that is something. So obviously English is not the place where you look for these sort of two sorts of things. Okay, so that is the point, that in a language there may be several forms, several ways, morphological strategies of forming adnominal distributive numerals, and usually you take the most complex form and use that as your adverbial numeral. That is the usual majority cross-linguistic picture. Okay, and for Bangla too, 7A, B, C are possible adnominal.
For some reason, even A is not that bad for me. I mean, A and C, D, for example.
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's possible.
Something to do with Kore, maybe. So my initial question was actually about Kore. That does Kore have a relation to being producing the adverbial? Or
yes, Okay. That's it. That's possible that you may find these to be not as bad. Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, that this connect between the adnominal, adverbial, morphological, obvious connect between these.
I don't think I can. Sorry, I can't do it in Hindi.
So you can't do, but you can do do karke, no.
That I can do, but I can't do without the reduplication.
So you don't have do karke.
No, or ek karke or teen karke. I don't. Maybe I can't do it with ek. Do karke, do, na.
It sounds bad even in my Hindi.
Yeah, it's bad. Not a Hindi speaker, but yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
So
Hello.
I will
In
go. Yeah. Hello.
yeah, in Bangla we have the abnominal form is acta, right? And we cannot have kore with it.
I could
Acta.
not hear the first part of what you said.
In Bangla we have the abnominal acta, and we cannot add kore to it, right? So we can say এক একজন এক একটা বই পড়েছে.
Yes.
If
Yes. Yes.
for which we'll get the first meaning for one example one. But we cannot say এক একটা করে বই পড়েছে, can we?
Yes. No. We can't. There is no core with that.
Yes, and it seems similar to the samart form in Georgian.
I don't think so.
No, we don't
Okay.
have the,
I
we
don't
don't
think
speak
so.
Georgian,
Yeah.
we can't say.
Because Samsamat is the numeral 3. Okay, so and Georgian I don't think has classifiers.
Okay.
So there might be similarities between the Bangla form and the Georgian forms, but that won't come from the numeral 3. Okay, so I'll come to Ekekta in the last part. Okay. Okay, usually that is something what you are noticing is something that you can only do with the numeral 1. Okay, and that's cross-linguistic. You can do things, special things. Wait, let me see. Is low below here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So yes, so I heard I've been studying the distributive numerals in Lotha with low below. And of course, she has like crazy things going on with just the numeral 1. And the rest of it is productive and nice, well-behaving. Okay. So yeah, this is a common pattern. The numeral 1 always
And I
has
just want
special
to
things.
point you to one thing. So this we looked at typologically only in Mamta's wonderful dissertation on numeral systems.
Uh-huh.
Right, and so this is, and so Lotha, that there's information there about Lotha, but 77 other Indian languages. So
Good.
you should
Great.
have a look at that.
So yeah, the variation between numeral 1 and others.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very robust difference, what Chef pointed out. Very robust. I mean, cross-linguistically. 1,
Good,
2, 3.
yes.
So she'll discuss this question and distributive numerals. But because it's a big typology of various other factors,
Yes.
you should have a look at that dissertation.
Yes. Cool. I will talk to you about that later, maybe.
Yeah. But
I'll ask you where I can download her dissertation from. Yeah. Okay. So as part of the workshop for this class, I want you to identify the distributive numerals in the language that you are working on, and identify the morphological strategies that are used to form these numerals, and well, possibly distinguish between the abnominal and verbial ones varieties, and also make note whether it's the case for the language that you're working on that the adverbial ones are minimally as complex as the abnominal ones. That is, whether the adverbial ones are the most complex forms that's available for distributive numerals. Okay, and you would not be able to answer these questions right away, but as we go along, you'd see more to feed your answer. And so the wait, and so if there are Bengalis, so of course there are. So I already saw 2 people who are Bengalis. So what I will ask you to do is maybe try to work on a different language if you want to participate in the workshop. Try to work on a different language that I have not worked on for 6 years. And so that will be more helpful for all of us. Okay. In fact, if any of you can find, I don't think that will be possible in a matter of 10 days, but find the data from Indian Sign Language. That would be good. That would be great. A great feat. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I have this table here, which I should try to put in. Yeah. So this is I've taken examples from the table from the Wall's entry on distributive numerals written by Gill. So languages use, what sort of strategies are used to form distributive numerals, right? So the importance of these things, such things, is that, when you are looking at a less studied language, so it's you get a pointer to where to look at, right? For to identify your target expressions, right? So distributive numerals use reduplication, they use prefixes, suffixes, preceding words, following words, or a combination of more than one strategies. Okay. I've added, so it is claimed in this entry by Gill that there are languages which do not have distributive numerals, namely English and Vietnamese. I will talk later in the second class about English distributive expressions. And this view that Gill has proposed in the Wall's entry is not actually accepted widely. There are people consider things to be distributive numerals, abnominal distributive numerals in English. Okay, so still, to stick to Gill's entry. So as you can see that all the entries that I've used, so the entries in red are added by me, examples from Indian languages. There is Nicobarese, which uses prefix. There is, other than Bangla, there is Maricopa, which uses suffix. German, Russian, all the Slavic languages. Greek uses preceding word. Okay. There are languages that use a following word. So Malagasy is an example from Waltz, and also Malayalam, Vedam. Okay. Malayalam also uses reduplication, right? Now let's look at the last column. So when you are studying distributive numerals in a less studied language, you could check which strategy it uses. Okay, that's something that could be useful. And then there are languages that use a combination. So to go back to Bangla, since I've already talked about those examples. So we have reduplication plus suffixation. Hindi, again, do karke reduplication plus suffixation, right? Malayalam, reduplication plus following word. Okay, so these are complex strategies. And then there are other languages which also use a combination of strategies. Okay, so why this is important, let me tell you that why this is important to have a track of the strategies and how they are combined, etc. Not even the fact that not even the question of how they're combined, but that the fact that they can be combined. Okay, it's useful to track them, right? Because as I will discuss in the second class, that you can possibly make something out of this, that what sort of strategy is used and what is it combined with and what sort of meaning is it indicating. Okay. So And my special purpose to highlight this part is to actually bring into focus that usually when people study distributive numerals, people do not pay attention to this variation, that there are more than one strategies, that languages could have more than one strategies and they could even combine them, right? Usually papers on distributive numerals talk about one strategy without even mentioning that there are other ways to talk about it, right? So those are great works. Those are not bad works at all, but a lot of interesting questions lie in the variation also, right? So when you are investigating these expressions in a language where these things have not been studied or not have been studied extensively, you should note the variation. Okay. Now, okay, let's move on. So yeah, you could use answer the second question. I want you to figure out the strategies. There's nothing to figure out. As soon as you study, you'll see the strategies and you should make a note of it, that you should check whether they could be combined, right? Or they could not be combined. There was a bar on combining them. Okay. Before going to the next section of my handout, which is about the interpretations, let me briefly give you a trivia, which is that all of this morphology is not restricted to numerals, right? It could extend to other cardinality phrases as well, right? So I have examples here, 9, 10, and 11, which shows the distributive morphology on many, on much, on a little bit, and on a few. Okay, so you could check while studying your language whether the morphology that is used for numerals is also used for many, much, few, etc. as well, other cardinality expressions. Okay. Okay, given that, let's move on to the interpretations, right? So, of course, this is the most important thing to understand about distributive numerals. Okay. So, distributive numerals have broadly two aspects of meaning. They indicate distributive readings, one, okay, and apart from that, they have an additional extra component of meaning, which is called covariation. Okay. Now, what is a distributive reading? The distributive reading is the possibly different, the distributive reading is different from the possibly different reading that I began my class with, right? So let's look at 12. So 3 জন মেয়ে দুটো করে বাক্স বয়েছে. Okay, so 3 girls carried 2 boxes each. What this sentence says is that take, there is this group of 3 girls, right? Take each individual in that group of 3 girls, in that plurality, that is each girl, okay, and assign 2 boxes to each girl, to that girl, right? So if 3 girls, this plural is made up of girl 1, girl 2, and girl 3. All this sentence 12 is saying that girl 1 carried 2 boxes, girl 2 carried 2 boxes, and girl 3 carried 2 boxes. Okay. So this is what is called as the participant distributive reading. That is, there is a plural in a sentence containing a distributive numeral. In 12, that is duto kore baksho, numeral indefinite. There is a plural. There is another noun phrase, a plural. So what the numeral says is that I share these objects, namely two boxes, to each of the atomic individuals in that plural, right? So if there are three girls, to each girl atom, I share the two boxes. I give two boxes, or I assign two boxes. Okay. So this is distributing over individuals. Okay. Individuals means, people, animals, objects, things. Okay. Objects are entities, basically. The second kind of distributive reading is occasion distributive reading. Occasion distributive reading could be temporal distributive or spatial distributive. So 13, রবি প্রত্যেকবার দুটো করে বাক্স বয়েছে, right? So imagine a situation when Robi was on the station and he had a lot of luggage piled up, and so he was taking his luggage, his boxes from one place to another place, and on each occasion, in each turn, Robi carried two boxes. Okay, so this is what sentence 13 says. So প্রত্যেকবার দুটো করে বাক্স বয়েছে. So on each occasion, so in occasion 1 or in turn 1, Robi carried box 1 and box 2, two boxes. On turn 2, Robi carried two other boxes. Okay, so this is the occasion distributive reading. In this case, distribution over intervals of time. Spatial distribution, this is also another kind of occasion. So occasion distribution is a cover term, not used by everybody, but used by Champollion and some other people to cover both temporal and spatial distribution, because theoretically they sort of form a category, the spatiotemporal aspect of an event. Okay, so that is called as the occasion. So spatial distribution, so this is the example that I thought of. So 14, so Robi Kolkata, Delhi আর বেঙ্গালুরুতে দুটো করে বাড়ি বানিয়েছে. So Robi is a promoter, or he's a builder. So he builds houses in different cities. He's a big builder who operates in many cities. So far in Kolkata, Delhi, and in each of Kolkata, Delhi, and Bengaluru, Robi has built two houses. Okay, so in Kolkata, Robi built two houses. In Delhi, Robi built two houses, and in Bengaluru, Robi built two houses. Okay, so this is spatial distribution, right? So this is not, this is distributing over space. So in each of these locations, the numeral indefinite duto kore bari is assigning two houses, right? So this is distribution over, again, spatial locations of space, or in other words, over occasion. Okay, so these are the two primary kinds of distributive readings, and a lot of the questions majorly debated over while studying distributive numerals is about these two readings, participant distributive readings or occasion distributive readings, and which one has which. Okay. There are several other aspects of distributive readings, kinds of distributive readings, however. I'll point out one very important distinction, which is distribution over atoms or distributions over non-atoms. Okay, so distribution over atoms is what we saw in 12. Okay, so তিনজন মেয়ে দুটো করে বাক্স বয়েছে, three girls carried two boxes each. So there is this plural individual, plural entity, which is composed of three girl atoms. And the expression duto kore baksho is assigning two boxes to each of those girl atoms, right? So this is distribution over atoms. Okay, But this is not the only kind of, this is atomic distributivity, right? Just take a plural, divide it into atoms, and assign whatever you have in your denotation, in your meaning. So for two tokore baksho, you have 2 boxes. So you assign those 2 boxes, assign 2 boxes to each of those atoms. Atomic distributivity. There can be non-atomic distributivity also. Okay, so I'm assuming that you don't, you haven't yet. I may be wrong. I'm just, for simplicity, I'm assuming that you haven't looked at the internal structure of plurals. That is theoretically the theoretical position on the internal composition of plurals. So that is why I am not bringing that up. That if you want to know, I can quickly show you on a Word file or something. So anyway, a plural can also be divided into sub-pluralities. Okay, it's not necessary that a plural is only composed of atoms. So 3 girls can be composed of a group of 2 girls and 1 girl, right? Or I mean, if you're talking about overlapping subparts, so those 3 girls, I can actually form 3 different groups with those 3 girls, right? So so one group containing, so if I have, let's say, Veena and Tina and Meena, one group can contain Veena and Meena, another group can contain Meena and Tina, and the third group can contain Tina and Reena. Okay, and the plural Veena, Meena, and Tina can have as its part all those 3 sub-pluralities, right? All that is relevant in this case for us is that a distributive numeral can distribute over sub-pluralities also, right? If the sub-plurality is contextually made salient, if supplied as part of the discourse. Okay, so this is an example that I thought of 15. So we did not have enough time to let each student present a paper. So the students in the class were divided into groups of 2 or 3, and then Tara duto kore paper present kore, right? So in this case, the meaning is not that each of the students presented a paper, but the meaning, the interpretation is that each of those subgroups that we divided the students into, Tara stands for that group of groups, the plurality formed of groups that we divided, that we formed in the class before presentation. And so duto kore is distributing over each of those groups of 2 or 3. Okay, so this is an example of subatomic distributivity. Okay, and to make the point clearer, I have 15C. So 15B means they, as in each of those subgroups that we formed, presented a paper. Okay, 15C, I have added this adverbial protyeke, each. Okay, adverbial each. So Tara protyeke ekta kore paper present kore. This is infelicitous in this context of given in 15A, because we set up our discourse by our premises by saying we do not have enough time to let each student present a paper. So to continue that with Tara protyeke ekta kore paper present kore is like our basic problem is not no longer taken care of, right? So that is why it's 15C in a different context is a felicitous good sentence, but in the context given in 15A, it's an infelicitous sentence, right? So you must understand the difference between ungrammaticality and unacceptability and infelicity. There are different ways of judging the status of a sentence. So this is infelicity, right? It's not keeping the discourse, the flow, it's not keeping the flow of the discourse alive. It's like raising a sort of, not a contradiction, but a certain conflict with the discourse. Okay. So the point here being that distributive numerals can distribute over non-atomic distributivity. Okay, so before I move on, I haven't given here any references because then, I'll give you all the references at the end of each class, so you can go and check them. But here I want to mention is that it was, first of all, the reference was not directly relevant yet, since we are not yet into any analysis or anything. So I want to mention that this very concept of distribution over subpluralities. So this is the part, have you seen in Indian classical music performances, right? You must have noticed that whenever the artists mention their guru, they touch their ears. So this is the part where I touch my ears. Okay, so this distribution of concept of distribution of subpluralities comes from my advisor, Schwarzschild. Okay, so I haven't referred to his name here, but this whole concept comes from him, his work. Okay.
Ishani, before you move on, just wanted to clarify on 15B. So it says duto kore. So that's 2 each, right? Each group presents 2 each.
2 papers. Yes. Oh yeah. So yeah, the translation is wrong. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Presented 2 papers. It should be 2 papers. Yeah. So I'll correct that. 15B. Okay. Also 15C. Okay. Thanks. No, 15C has acta core, but I'll make that duto core too. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, initially I had acta core, but to maintain the continuity from 12, 13, 14, I changed this to duto core. So, but I forgot about the translation. Yeah. So, okay, let's move on to the next interpretation associated with next kind of interpretation. Next interpretational contribution that the distributive numerals make. So this is the possibly different reading that we started our class with, right? The name for possibly different reading is given in the literature. The one that is most commonly used is covariation, right? And this name, this term comes from Farkas's seminal work on these kinds of indefinite or these kinds of numerals in Hungarian. And so in the last class, I will talk about Farkas's work. In fact, I probably spent the entirety of the 3rd class on Farkas's work. And so let's understand possibly different. So again, to sort of remind you what I said at the beginning, that I'm not aiming to teach you the analysis of distributive numerals or dependent indefinites as part of this course, because that is not a feat that I can achieve in 3 classes. Okay, but what I want to achieve is so that you can study these things on your own after you have done these 3 classes, right? So I'll mention little bits and pieces of the analysis of this, little bits and pieces of the syntax and the semantics of distributive numerals, right? That contribute to the analysis. Okay. For example, this part, the various distributive readings, forms a major chunk of the analysis. Okay. The second important part is covariation. So let's understand what covariation is again. Let's look at 16. Every student in my class read a paper about scope. Covariation is the possibility that the papers vary with the students, right? So Rina read Abush, Robbie read Reinhardt, Pintu read Barker, Noah read Reinhardt again. Now, what is to represent it in terms of sets? Okay, so what is in the sort of what objects appear in the denotation of a paper about scope, right? That is what I'm trying to capture in this bullet point. So that is what is known roughly as the witness of an indefinite, of the indefinite. This witness is a set which contains various individuals, which are in this case a paper about scope. Everything that has the quality of being a paper about scope, right? That occurs, and witness is the meaning of this expression, a paper about scope, which is a set of those papers actually, and each of those are also singleton sets because this is a paper. Anyway, let's not go into that details. You don't need to understand that. If it seems alien, don't worry. All it means that the meaning of a paper about scope has, as part of its meaning contribution, a host of papers about scope. Okay, and so it must have several papers in its meaning, right? So it should have this, the meaning of this phrase must have more than one paper, right? When it says a paper about scope, it has more than one paper. So it has this paper by Abush, it has this paper by Reinhardt, it has a paper by Barker, and so on and so forth, right? So a distributive numeral, which obligatorily has a covariant interpretation, right? So, for example, in 17, I have the Bangla version roughly of the English sentence in 16. So, আমার ক্লাসের প্রতিটি স্টুডেন্ট স্কোপের উপর একটা করে, বা প্রত্যেক স্টুডেন্ট ইজ অলসো গুড, সো প্রতিটি স্টুডেন্ট স্কোপের উপর একটা করে পেপার পড়েছে, রাইট? হিয়ার the meaning contribution, the meaning of একটা করে paper, right, must be this set in one, right, in Roman numerals, which has more than one paper. So Abush, Reinhardt, Barker, May, and whoever. Okay. And not just one paper, namely just Abush, right? So when you are talking about the denotation of একটা করে paper, or the meaning contribution of this numeral indefinite একটা করে paper, must contain several units of paper on scope, right? So that is the meaning in one. It cannot be just one paper, right? This is set theoretically representing basically the parallel, basically theoretically describing what I said at the beginning, and that it cannot be the case that every student read the same paper, right? It must be the case that every student, it must allow the possibility that every student read a different paper. Right? So that is what that is what is known as covariation, that this very specific requirement that there are several, that the witness set of the indefinite is not a singleton set in terms of sets, right? Or the cardinality of this set is greater than one, right? So in two, you have a set containing a singleton set. The cardinality of this set is one, right? Because there's only one paper. That situation where everybody read the same paper. So the only one paper is in there in the meaning of one paper about scope, right? So here the cardinality is 1, but the distributive numeral specifically says that no, the cardinality of the set that I denote must be greater than 1, must have more than one object, right? Okay. I did not want to use the term cardinality must be greater than 1 because that's a bit misleading for indefinites containing 2, 3, 4. Okay. Because it's right to say that the cardinality is greater than 1, but usually one might get confused. Anyway,
Ishani,
so let's come back. Yes.
Yeah, just one
Yeah.
question about the witness set. So in case of acta core, which is 1 each, 2 is not possible, 2 is not possible, 1 is fine. But if it's duto core, then is it possible that everybody read the same 2 papers and we can still say everyone read duto core paper?
No.
You
So
can't.
in that case, maybe I should be able to write this. So I'm stopping the share this file, not sharing, and then I'm sharing a Word file. Okay, stop share. Okay, start share. Okay, yeah. So Pluto Core. Okay, so two classifier core, say book. Okay, so what it would be is sets of 2 books. Okay, so let's say I don't want to name the books because I usually cannot remember the names of any book. So this will be, so each student is reading a set of 2 books, right? In that case,
Right.
so আমার ক্লাসে প্রত্যেক স্টুডেন্ট দুটো করে বই পড়েছে. Every student in my class read 2 books.
But can it be the same
2
2
possibly
books?
different books?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, I understood your question. No need to repeat. Okay, so here, book 2. Okay, let me do the, sorry. Let me do the easier case first, which is book 3, book 4. So book 5, book 6. Okay, book 7, book 8. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what this will, so this is what will be the witness set for Duto Core book. That is, there are several sets of 2 books, right? And those sets differ from each other, right? What it cannot be is this book 1 and book 2, and that's all. That is, everybody cannot read the same set of 2 books. Everybody cannot read War and Peace and Crime and Punishment and be done, right? It has to be 2 possibly different books. So so they must have read a set of possibly different books, 2 books. Okay. So you have, so let's say student 1 read Crime and Punishment and War and Peace. Student 2 read, I don't know, Jane Austen's some book, whatever that those are. So Emma and Pride and Prejudice. Student 3 read, aspects and syntactic structures. So that is the case where Duto Core book will be felicitous. Okay, if everybody read the same 2 books, that is, if the situation is such that every student in my class read Crime and Punishment and War and Peace, okay, I cannot describe that situation by the sentence আমার ক্লাসের প্রতিটি স্টুডেন্ট দুটো করে বই পড়েছে। Okay, that is infelicitous utterance. Okay. So here too, that theoretically you can describe that the cardinality of this set, the witness set, must be greater than 1. But the basic point is there must be several different sets of 2 books, right? Okay. Or it could also be a trickier situation is that, let's say, this is also good. So student 1 read book 1, book 2, student 2 read book 1, book 2. So these are all, this is just playing with the sets, nothing else. So student 3 read book 1 and book 3, and student 4 read book 1 and book 2. So basically 3 of the students read the same pair of books, but one student read one of the books which is same with the other student, but she read one different book, book 3. That itself theoretically makes the cardinality of this set more than 1, right? So and that makes this set that I've written in 2 to qualify as the witness set for Dutokoro, right? Because there's a variation, there's covariation there. So there must be a possibility that the set of 2 books change with the students. Take each student and assign a possibly different set of 2 books to that student, right? And there must be at least 2 students in your class who have read 2 different sets of books, right? So you can take student 3 with any of the other students and you'll get that difference because student 3 has read a different set of 2 books from everybody else, right? So yeah, anyway, this is just how you capture these things in terms of set theory. But the basic point is that distributive numeral can be used only when it is felicitous to allow for this possibility of difference, right? Only when you can allow for this possibility of difference. In case whether it is 2 books or 127 books or 1 book doesn't matter. The exact numeral doesn't matter. What the distributive numeral says is that there must be, if the numeral is n, so it says there must be possibly different sets of n number of books. Okay. So let's see the difference again from 1. So this is একটা করে বই. So 1, the numeral 1. Okay. So here, all it would change is the cardinality of each set of books in the witness set, right? So here, this will be like this. So instead of 2 books assigned to each girls, there's just 1 book that is assigned to each girl, and that 1 book should be able to differ. The possibility should be such that it should be able to differ, right? I'm just omitting this case. And in this case, what is barred is that everybody cannot read the same books. So actually, in terms of the larger set, this bracket, the witness set, the characteristics of the set, the witness set doesn't change. Whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 15 doesn't matter. So as long as the cardinality is n, so each set has the cardinality n. That is all the 1, 2, 3, the numeral part of the distributive numeral says, right? What is the cardinality of this each component set? For একটা করে it is 1, for দুটো করে it's 2, for 15টা করে it's 15, right? That is not the question that covariation deals with. Covariation says whether each of these component sets are same or different. Right? whether they are different from each other. So yeah, covariation is about whether there are various sets of books or not, or just one set of books. If there's just one set of books or one set of papers, one set of apples, that's not good for that will not lead to a felicitous use of a distributive numeral, right? So, okay, where was I? Yeah, so Balusu, in his study on the Telugu distributive numerals, was the first person to highlight this component of meaning. Farkas talked about it, but Balusu actually tried to encode this in his meaning, in the meaning that he gave for this numerals. So I think I should not write, I've written that give a semantics, but that's kind of tricky to say he gave a semantics because anyway, so he gave a meaning to these things, this component of meaning also, and he called it the more than n reading for distributive numerals. So what he said was that if there are n numerals in your cardinality, so if it is three books, okay, three apples, let's say your distributive numeral looks like three apples, okay, then it must be the case that the denotation of three apples must contain at least 4 apples. Okay, that is how he captured it, right? Okay, that is how he defined this meaning. Balusu defined this meaning component. Okay, so if there are 15 let's say 15 core apples, distributive numerals, then the denotation of 15 core apples, this distributive numeral must at least have 16 apples, right? At least have. So this is the meaning component of covariation. And this meaning component is by no means limited to distributive numerals, right? This is common to every dependent element in natural language. So for example, this meaning component is also known as the multiplicity implicature that occurs in the literature on bare plurals, okay, which are incredibly hard things to study. Okay, anyway, so that's it. So 2 components of meaning, various distributive readings, participant distributive, occasion distributive, atomic distributivity, non-atomic distributivity, right? And then the other component of meaning, which is covariation. It says what is in the denotation of the numeral indefinite, or what kind of objects this expression stand for in the world that you're talking about, right? That is what covariation is about. So let me give an overview. Is that the first aspect of meaning, that is various distributive readings, okay, is about what sort of relation the distributive numeral establishes with another expression in the sentence, okay? So it's about another expression, namely a plural or a universal quantifier, okay, that it establishes with, much like an anaphor, right? So anaphors we all know from day 1 of linguistics, semester 1 of linguistics. So this is exactly like an anaphor. What distributive readings is the result of the relationship the numeral establishes, or the numeral must establish with another expression in the sentence, okay? Covariation, however, is not about what it establishes with other expression. It is the meaning contribution of its own. It's about itself. What is its own contribution? Nothing about other expressions, right? It does have to do with the discourse, okay? So covariation, again, I I don't know I don't want to burden you with a lot of terms, but just so that you can remember, at least hearing, is that covariation is about pragmatics, right? It's not necessarily about semantics. That is why I said that it's kind of not exactly right to say that Balasu gave us semantics, because this is a pragmatic aspect. He encoded in terms of formulas this component of meaning. Okay, so yeah, so covariation is about pragmatics, so that is what sort of discourse you must have to felicitously utter a sentence with distributive numerals. Okay, whereas the different kind of distributive readings 2.1 is exactly about semantics, syntax, everything, right? So this is in the composition. Okay. Now let's move on to quickly. So I guess I have 10 minutes or so. Okay. I will be able to tell you at least the basic picture about the licensing of distributive numerals. So basic thing about distributive numerals that is studied and questioned, and whenever you're studying distributive numerals, you should be able to describe, or you should minimally investigate, is their licensing. Remember just what I said right now, is that when we are studying distributive readings, we are talking about what kind of link or relation this numeral, this morphologically augmented numeral, is establishing with another expression in the sentence. Okay. So, and I said that this is like an anaphor. Okay. And so so you can guess from those hints that I'm borrowing the term licensing from that background, right? That a distributive numeral in the capacity of being an anaphor needs to be licensed. There is a question of licensing them. Okay, whether it needs to be or not, that there is an issue about that, and that is what is the topic of licensing distributive numerals, right? Now, broadly, there are two types of languages, right? We studied participant distributive and occasion distributive, occasion being temporal and spatial, and participant being objects, entities. Okay, so some languages allow the occasion distributive reading to be this reading make this reading available for free by default. Okay, so whenever you have a sentence with distributive numerals, you automatically get an occasion distributive reading. Okay, whereas there are other languages which do not allow the occasion distributive reading for free, and the occasion distributive reading needs to be licensed just like the participant distributive reading, that is, well, by a plural or a universal quantifier, things like that. Okay, Telugu and Tlingit, and I think another language is Karitiana. In the literature, it has been observed that these languages are the languages that allow the occasion distributive readings for free. Okay, by default, you get this reading. Whereas majority of languages do not have this feature. Okay, so the list is huge. Okay, and I think Bangla falls in the second category. Okay.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. We can only see the word file still.
Oh my God, sorry. I'm glad you told me, because I completely forgot that I was not sharing the handout. Thank you. But I haven't used the handout much. I've been only talking. Yeah, so the part that
I get back there.
oh yeah, it just because I had this open, right? So it didn't occur to me. Sorry. So yeah, the only thing I guess you couldn't see, but I talked about was this thing multiplicity implication, nothing else. Okay. And so now we are in this section 3. So 2 types of languages, Telugu and Tlingit being the first kind, which allow occasion distributive readings easily by default, and the rest of most languages, I think, are the second kind, where they do not allow the occasion distributive reading for free, but the occasion distributive reading behaves just like the participant distributive reading. Okay. But this has led to important theoretical discussions. So it's important even to achieve a basic description of distributive numerals in your language, in languages that you're studying. You must talk about the licensing, because this is a key question. Okay, so let's look at Balasu's examples. So 18a. So I'll try to pronounce it. I know. I guess I'll stop. I won't do that. So two monkeys jumped. Intransitive sentence. So rendu monkeys jumped. Okay. Balasu says that this has the reading: in each interval of time, 2 monkeys jumped, or in each location, 2 monkeys jumped. So in the first case, so let's say there is some bell, and after that bell is rung, let's say after 3 seconds, that bell is rung in the zoo or something, in a monkey enclosure, and 2 monkeys are jumping. Or the second case, that we have divided the monkeys in groups of 2 and spread them across our enclosure, and in each location, that group of 2 monkeys is jumping. So that is the spatial distributive reading, a kind of occasion distributivity, right? So Balasu says 18a does have that reading, right? Any of those readings. It does have temporal distributivity or spatial distributivity, okay? Similarly, 18b, it's a transitive sentence, but a singular subject. So Ram saw two monkeys. So Ram, rendu monkeys saw. Okay. Balasu says, not only Balasu and Jayashilan says that this sentence also has the reading, the occasion distributive readings. That is, in each time interval, Ram saw 2 monkeys, or in each location, Ram saw 2 monkeys. So, for example, Ram went to a zoo, and there are several monkey enclosures, and he's visiting them, and in each location, he's seeing 2 monkeys. So Ram, two monkeys saw. Or so let's say, I mean, in the same setup, let's say in every 5 minutes, Ram is seeing 2 monkeys. So it's a zoo full of monkeys, and the monkeys have grouped themselves into pairs, and Ram is just seeing 2 monkeys in every 5 minutes or every 3 minutes or so, while visiting the zoo. So Balasu claims that 18b does have these readings, these occasions, spatial and temporal distributivity, right? C, transitive sentence, plural subject. So the kids, two monkeys saw, right? Definitely has those 2 readings of occasion distributivity. That is, in each time interval, the kids saw 2 monkeys, and in each location, the kids saw 2 monkeys, right? On top of that, it also has the participant distributivity, right? That is, remember our atomic distributivity or even non-atomic distributivity. So each of the kids saw 2 monkeys. This reading is available as soon as a plural subject is available for the distributive numeral rendu kutululu, right? 2 monkeys. Okay. So basically, the summary is that the participant distributive reading, that is, each of the kids is available saw two monkeys is available when there's an overt plural licensor, or there's a when the word overt is not important when there's a plural licensor for the distributive numeral. The occasion distributive readings, that is the temporal and spatial distributivity, are licensed even without a plural in the sentence, right? That is when there is no other noun phrase, so intransitive, or there is a noun phrase, but it is singular, right? So even in those cases, you get the occasion distributive reading. Okay. But the participant distributive reading to be available must, of course, will need a plural into whose participants you will assign the two monkeys. You will use the distributive numeral, right? Okay. So Telugu is a language that allows the occasion distributive readings for free or easily. It doesn't need licensing. Okay. Similar kind of claim is made for Klingit by Tet Cable. Okay. Now let's look at the other kind of languages. So I will just read out I won't read out the Hungarian examples, but look at Hungarian. So 19A, 7 children are running, and here the 7 children is a distributive numeral. So het, child. I don't know how to pronounce Hungarian, so, and most likely it's not het, but something else. So yeah, so this is a bad sentence, right? So compare this with 18A. This is a bad sentence. Cool. 19B, intransitive. Mary visited an acquaintance, transitive with singular subject, Mary. Mary visited an acquaintance yesterday afternoon. So Mary visited yesterday afternoon egg acquaintance. So this is bad. Okay, so compare that with 18B. Third one, with a plural subject, the children brought egg book. So one book each. It has the reading that each of the children brought one book. Okay. So the participant distributive reading is available. So for these examples, I do not have the information whether they make the occasion distributive reading available for 19C or 20C Romanian or 21C Capchikel. So that's why I have not written them. But the basic point here is for intransitive or for transitive with singular subject, 19AB, 20AB, 21AB, the occasion distributive readings are not available. Okay. Whereas only I shouldn't say only, but the participant distributive reading is available, of course, when there's a plural subject. That's similar to Telugu. Okay. So here is what I think is the case for Dujon Kore in Bangla. Okay. So 22A, Dujon Kore me jole jhap dilo. This is not an ungrammatical sentence, actually. I have written this mark of ungrammaticality to maintain continuity with every other example. But actually, I think this is infelicitous. So this sentence is infelicitous to me, right? So I think to say dujon kore me jole jhap dilo without establishing the proper discourse is not appropriate. It's not available to me. Similarly, Ritu duto kore sandesh kheyechilo doesn't mean anything unless you have established a proper discourse. It doesn't. The moment you say Ritu duto kore sandesh kheyechilo, you ask duto kore as in what sequence or in what frequency, duto kore with respect to what? That is the question that you are asking to the speaker, right? So it seems like an incomplete sentence, right? So I don't think this. So that's why I don't think it behaves like Telugu. Even with Dutokode, it doesn't behave like Telugu. And C does have the participant distributive reading. So Mera Dutokode Shandesh Khechilo does have the reading, of course, that each of the girls had 2 sweets. Okay, so I can stop here if you want. Now that I have told you about the 2 kinds of reading and the differences between languages with respect to these two readings. I can stop here and complete I have 2 more pages to go on in the next class if you want. What should I do?
I think that would be better, because I think that people are just not you're going to need to talk about this properly. So I think it'll be
Yes.
better, because then we'll go through one.
Okay, so I'll see you on
26.
26. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, meanwhile, people can work on the workshop tasks, that itself. So Bangla speakers should be doing some other language. Hindi would be nice to do. Here,
Yes.
Marathi is here too. Lotha is here. And what else is here? The participant thing.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few Hindi speakers and that. And there's also Bhojpuri here, na? Amrita is Bhojpuri, no? Yeah. Okay. So we'll see. So in this time, one should work.
Yes, start thinking about these, how you would basically say these sentences in the language you're working on. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ishani.
Thank
So we'll
you for
stop
listening to
now
me.
and see you on the 26th.
Okay.
Okay, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can you give an example of occasion distributive in Bangla? So, do we say something like Ramke dubar kore jete hoyechilo? Would that be an occasion distributive?
Yes, it could be an occasion distributive reading. Yes.
But there, I don't get the interpretation that Ram had to go twice every time interval. Like for every period of time, Ram had to go somewhere twice. That's not the reading I get. It's the only reading that Ram had to go twice.
Well, as I said, the example that you gave, Ram ke dubar kore office jete hoyechilo, Ram had to go to office twice in each turn. I would say that is it. To me, as a speaker, it sounds like an incomplete sentence. You're not saying twice in what is the frequency of this going to office twice. After what interval did he go to office twice? This part is missing in that sentence.
Okay.
So I would not say that this is actually a perfect sentence in Bangla. Okay, so it's not, I don't know if that's what you said. It's not obvious to me that this sentence means in each relevant time interval, Ram had to go to office twice. I need what that relevant time interval is to say this sentence felicitously. For example, I need রামকে গত সপ্তাহে প্রতিদিন 2 বার করে অফিস যেতে হয়েছিল। I need that information প্রতিদিন, each day, or let's say প্রতি মাসে, or whatever, in প্রতি সপ্তাহে, whatever, in each week. So I need that part to utter রামকে 2 বার করে অফিস যেতে হয়েছিল. Yeah, that is what I am claiming. So I think I'm not differing much from what you are saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So I need the information about the interval to say this sentence in a sort of say it felicitously. Okay.
I have a follow-up to this point. Suppose we had to go to some office just to get some work done, and not because it's our office and we go all the time, right? If I had to say, ish ওই কাজটার জন্য 5 বার করে অফিস যেতে হয়েছে, then would you say that works for you? I don't give you a time frame, I just give you the sentence, but the information that you have is that it's an office that I'm going for some work, not for my work. Like it's not my workplace, that's what I mean.
So again, I would want to know. So suppose there is one fact. Okay. So one way to interpret this, if I'm forced to, I would interpret it as, let's say, each day you had to go 5 times, right? Since you didn't tell me what is the
Okay.
5 times in what interval? What is the frequency of going 5 times? Okay, so
But what about the reading of for this one event which might have taken 3 weeks or something, I had to go this many times. If I mean, is that a sense that you get?
no.
No. Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I will say 5 বার যেতে হয়েছিল then. Why would I say 5 বার করে?
But I think I would use it more in a habitual sense. But ওই একটা কাজের জন্য 5 বার করে যেতে হয় is something that I.
যেতে হয়.
Yeah, but there's no time frame there, right? So.
Yeah, and again, listen to yourself what you said. So ওই একটা কাজের জন্য 5 বার করে অফিস যেতে হয়. For each work, I have to go 5 times. You have provided each there. ওই একটা কাজ. Right?
Okay.
I am saying that without একটা কাজ, or ওই একটা দিন, or ওই একটা লেখার জন্য, একটা বইয়ের জন্য, this 5 বার করে is lost.
Right.
Like for what? 5 বার করে in what interval? For what? So
Right,
that
so
is what
it's not
is
necessary.
yeah.
So not necessarily temporal interval, but an event.
No.
Yeah.
So actually bar is a tricky phrase. It can be a classifier or a measure expression or both. So yeah, but so it gives the illusion that it only comes with time, but it doesn't, of course. একটা কাজের জন্য 5 বার গেছি.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, okay. Or একটা লোকের জন্য 5 বার ঘুরছি or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, which is absolutely nothing to do with time in that sense, right?
No.
Because you
It just says 5 times for one individual.
yeah, what you're doing and where, and yeah, interesting one.
Yeah, so the point being that I don't get occasion distributivity for free without something licensing it. They said for each work, for each time interval, for each day.
Right.
So I don't really get it as easily as Balusu seems to get it for Telugu. Yeah, and some, Klingit and some other claims also for other languages. Yeah. I need proper discourse setup, or even, as I will show, structural setup. Yeah. Is there any other question?
No, I think not so.
Okay.
So ठीक है.
Okay. So see you.
See you.
See you on Friday.
See you on the 26th, yes.